Before we begin the episode, I would like to thank our sponsor, Chin Up Goggles, the new generation of vision training. Its simplistic design eliminates downward vision, improving a player's spatial awareness, anticipation, skill acquisition and execution. The findings have been supported by scientific research in CIT, now MTU. Be sure to visit chinupgoggles.com for more. Welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You can follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On episode 56, I am delighted to be joined by Connacht rugby head coach Andy Friend. We discuss feedback, individual versus team improvement, skills, the importance of relationships, learning from other sports and so much more. I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with Andy, so I hope you enjoy the episode. Hi Andy, thanks a million for joining me on the podcast.
Pleasure, Ola. Good to be here.
So delighted to have you on to chat about all things coaching. So starting off, how do you think your career as a player has impacted you as a coach and your coaching style?
Well, that was many years ago. It definitely helped me. I think I'm of the view that you probably have to have played the game in order to be able to coach it, because it just gives you the little insights and nuances around the game. So I definitely, playing the game definitely helped me. But as I said, that was many moons ago. So I've been coaching now for 27 years professionally. So it's probably 29 years since I stopped playing. Yeah,
long time. I'm interested there. I actually had a debate on my Instagram page on social media a while ago about that. Do coaches need to be a player? And you said there it's the nuances you think that make that difference when you're a head coach with playing experience.
Yeah, I don't think you have to have played at the elite level. In fact, I know you don't have to have played at the elite level. But for example, for me to go in and let me pick a sport, synchronized swimming. I've never done synchronized swimming. For me to go in and coach synchronized swimming would be very, very difficult because I just haven't done it. I don't know what people are feeling when they're underneath the water, and I just don't, I don't have a feel for that sport. So
yeah,
I think you have to have played the game, if it said at whatever level.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be at the elite level, and in fact, sometimes I think that can damage you if you've played at the elite level. Because there's a perception, because you're a great player, you're now going to be a great coach, which doesn't always ring true. So, and unfortunately in rugby, as in a lot of other sports, there seems to be a real push to get elite players into coaching. And sometimes it works, but I think more times it doesn't work.
Okay, interesting. And you mentioned a couple of different sports there. Do you ever look to other sports and kind of maybe look at other coaching styles or maybe visit sessions? I did reach out to Adrian O'Sullivan, a Dublin Camogie coach, and he said to say hello. I know you had him down for a session before.
Yeah, no, and we do. We forever looking at different sports and trying to learn different things, because every sport has its uniqueness about it. For example, when I was at the Waratahs, again a few years ago now, we got in the Australian volleyball coach, and that was all around how do they get maximum height off a very short run up, which is what we want to do in a line out. We want to try and get maximum power. So they had this step and a half bang, and up they went. So he did a lot of work on our forward players with their line out stepping, in order to initiate a movement of going up, which I thought was, it was actually a skill that a lot of people may not assimilate with rugby union, but it was very much a volleyball skill, being able to spike at the net or get up high in order to block a spike, which is exactly what we want, just, immediate impact, vertical height in a line out. So, I've used volleyball coaches before, AFL coaches for kicking, rugby league coaches for tackling, football coaches, soccer coaches for spatial awareness, netball coaches for hand-eye coordination, cricket coaches for similar, and then touched on a whole range of different, going to other sports. And one of the beauties of coming over here to Ireland, opening up to a whole new array of sports, the GAA, where, again, great athletes, and you can go and learn some great things off their coaching and what they're doing.
Absolutely. What do you make of GAA, and not only the skill, as you say, like I'd say watching hurling for the first time, you were nearly blown away with the skill level, but the fact that it's an amateur sport with professional commitments, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm overly knowledgeable in the game. Like I've only watched it for 3 years, but again, like having been a sports lover, you get to pick up the trends of the game, and I just love. I love the hurling. I just think that's amazing. That is an amazing sport and amazing athletes with what they do. The football is not too dissimilar to AFL. It's different in that it's a round ball and there's a few different rules there. But again, you know, I love any good contest. But I am always I do admire the amateurism of it, yet the professional nature in which the players obviously condition themselves and the coaching that goes on there. The camogie similar. Like it's just a great spectacle of sport that unfortunately, unless you've come to Ireland, it's not really exposed. No, it's not really exposed in other areas of the world. So I'd heard about hurling before, but I actually, honestly, I had that confused with lacrosse. I thought it was the same thing. It's definitely not. I'd been much more aware of the football because of the link with the AFL. And I play that abbreviated version, which just ends up in, it should be a boxing match instead of a game of football. But so I'd seen that sort of thing before, but to see both of the games now live, it's brilliant. It's great, great sport.
Over your years coaching, how have you evolved since beginning up to now? Have you noticed a massive change in your approach? What has stayed similar, and how do you think you've changed over the years?
Oh, there's definitely been a massive change. I mean, just even looking at the roles that I started when I first started coaching, I was a skills coach. So my whole focus was on individual skill, and I saw the game through a microscope, if you like. I could have told you at the end of a game, if I was working with a halfback, I could have told you every pass that he did well and why he did it well. I could have told you the passes where he didn't go so well, what it was with his foot position.
Wow.
If you were to ask me now, I don't see any of that because I'm now looking at the bigger picture. So I think through the course of my coaching career and my coaching journey, the different roles probably dictate how you watch the game. So I was a skills coach and then into an attack coach, or into a backs coach, into an attack coach, into a defense coach, into a head coach. And the more you move up the ladder there, the broader your view on the game becomes. And now I'm surrounded by really good coaches that I give them free rein to delve into the detail. But if you were to ask me now, to delve into the detail, I could go back and look at it if I chose to, but I don't have the time to do that. So I now take probably a wider strategic view of the game and the way I look at training and look at the week, and opposition previews and game reviews. So very, very different. And then just as a person, as we grow older, as we mature, we slow down. You'd like to think you slow down in terms of your haste to get to the next spot. Doesn't mean that I'm any less competitive. Doesn't mean that I'm any less driven. It just means that I've got a greater. I don't need to get there yesterday, if you like. Whereas before, as a young coach, I wanted everything yesterday. Not even tomorrow. I wanted it yesterday. I wanted it to happen. And life's not like that. You've got to take time. And there's the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not built in a day. And just over time, if you become patient and you just have your key processes and principles in place, and you're prepared to work hard and stick at something, eventually you'll reap the rewards.
I'm interested that you mentioned skills coach there. How much of the elite level game is down to the fundamentals of the sport and what we learn as kids? And why I ask that is my background's GAA, and I go out to a lot of games, particularly underage games, and the amount of times I see these big tactical plans, particularly around finals, and you've got all these words shouted from the sideline, but the players aren't executing the fundamentals. I get the sense that we're just, I don't know what your opinion is, but we're just, at the underage level in particular, we're just jumping to the fancy tactical side rather than the fundamentals of the sport.
Yeah, and I think it's a really key point. I was only having this discussion with someone the other day. just around, what are the formative years of our life, and it's between the ages of 8 and 12, where you will form most of your habits. Some of them bad, and some of them really good, and some of them really. So it's a really fertile period of time to ingrain some really key skills, whether that's just in life or whether it's in your sport. So, and the best example I've ever heard on this was when the Russian gymnastics program was going so well in the late 80s, early 90s. There was a few other factors we now know at play there, but the best coach in Russia started at the under eights. The second best coach in Russia started at the under nines, and the third best under 10s, and so it went on. So the best learning was being given to the athletes at the younger age. So by the time they got up to 16, 17, 18, all the fundamentals had been ingrained. Whereas in the Western world, we seem to flip it on its head. We tend to have your most experienced coaches be the pro coaches, and they sit up the top end, and your least experienced coaches keep dripping down the chain and get down there to the under 6, under 7, under 8, under 9, under 10, when that's the most formative time to be delivering these key messages. So, I think, again, if we were really smart with the way we developed our kids in terms of, their skill acquisition and just their habit forming, we would have the best educators at that younger age, anywhere between 8 and 12, form those good habits, whether they be eating habits, sleeping habits, recovery habits, enjoyment habits, how to kick a footy, hold a slither. So is that right?
It is. Yeah, good man.
Whatever the sport is, teach those basic fundamentals there, because that then becomes your habit, that becomes ingrained. And a bit like all of us, when you're not thinking how to walk or how to run or how to ride a bike, because you did that at those formative years, and now you can do that. Now you can start to tighten those things up. But I think I'd have to agree with you. I think there's a lot of focus on the tactical stuff, and I've been involved with underage coaching before. Some of it when I first started coaching, but also, often I go down to, more so in Australia when I had a bit more time, to be honest, but I'd go down to schoolboy matches and I'd sit there and I'd listen in to coach speak, and it's not about what the Brumbies did last night on the telly. Did you not see that line out? Well, these are professional athletes that train. Just teach me how to catch and pass and run square and tackle, put my head on the right position, and how to do the basic skills of the game of rugby, which is the game that we're talking about here. So I think we need to spend a lot more time at the junior level with our better coaches, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I had a brilliant question in from a Twitter account, GA Coach Quotes. How much time do you as a group spend on the fundamentals as opposed to, as we just said, the games-based and tactical sessions?
If I was to give you a percentage, I would say at least 80% of our stuff is just on the fundamentals. And most of our play most of our training is based around unstructured play. So it's not structured play, because that's actually where most of the play happens. But that's not normal, and there's a lot of set piece stuff, a lot of structured stuff within the game of rugby. And I've been guilty of it in the past as a coach, but it was a fair while ago where, 80% of your training is based upon getting this line-out play right and this scrum play right and this restart right. You have to have a look at some of those things, but the game's not based around scrums, line-outs and restarts. It's based around open or key principles of play. Catching square, running square, being able to draw a man, getting off the line hard in defence, bodies in front, all the rest of it. So we spend the majority of our time now, I'd say about at least 80%, on those key fundamentals and trying to ingrain those in everything that we do.
Okay, interesting. I'm a kind of a skills coach, I guess, in GEA, and what I'm trying to discover, and I've asked a couple of people about this outside of the podcast, but how do you balance improving individuals versus a team? And I know with Connacht, your setup, you would have, let's say, multiple coaches to help you, but for coaches that maybe don't have that major setup, how do you, and from your experience as a skills coach, how difficult is it to balance the two together at the same time?
Well, I think they're intrinsically linked too, because, if you just think about it, logically, if individuals get better, the team gets better. So I think one of the key things we can teach our players, our athletes, is how to be self-sufficient. And I often say this to coaches. I reckon the best coaches are the ones that by the end of the year, they're heading to the. This will sound really morbid, but if they're heading to the final and they get hit by a bus and they don't turn up, the team's still going to function because they don't actually need you there. You've ingrained all the key learning attributes and fundamentals and the habits as to how they can go about being the best versions of themselves. You've ingrained that over the course of the 12 months you've had them, or the 8 months, 9 months, whatever it is. So I reckon our job as coaches is, and I don't think this actually, I think a lot of coaches, and I certainly was one at the time, you want to be, you don't want to be redundant, right? So you want to make sure that they need you. Your players need you.
Yeah.
Because if you're not there, you don't have a job, right? So, but I reckon if we flip that and you say, actually, my job's actually to be really super organised that I and clever in the way I educate these blokes that at the end of the season they don't need me. And if I can do that, I've been a really successful coach. Mm-hmm. So how can I ingrain those habits and skills into the players? Well, the first thing at the end of the day, I'm not here to design your skill program. What I am here to do is to check in that you know how to plan a week and you know what your key fundamentals are that you want for that week. So one of the things that we have there at Connacht now, we have the players deliver a journal, or they have the opportunity to. Not everyone does it, but our best players tend to do it. Okay. And some of them send it to me on the Sunday night that says, "Friendly, here's what I want to do this week," and it's what I want to. The three key things I want to get out of the week. Here's what my Monday is going to look like. Here's what I'm going to do on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday into the game. If I get selected, here's how I want to play. Now that's been built over the course of the last few years, and we've actually got. I'm going to say about 40 to 50% of our players do that. Now we've got another chunk, and old dogs, new tricks. They're hard to change. Yeah. But so a lot of our younger blokes where they're coming through, and that's what they're doing. So I'm sitting there going, brilliant. And I might go back with a couple of comments. Looks good. Have you thought about this? You thought about that? So at the end of the day, they're the master of their own destiny, and we're there to guide and support. That's why we're called support staff. We're there to support the player. And I continue to say to the players, the best coach you'll ever have is you. You're the best coach you'll ever have. Our job is to teach you how to be the best version of that, and to teach you about your best habits and goal setting and planning and reflection and staying on top of that, recovery, all those other things. We're here, and you'll fall off the tree every now and then, and we'll pick you back up and put you back on it. That's our job. So it's a long way of answering your question, but if we can zone in on all the individuals and make them the best at managing their own destiny, then our team's going to be better. And then all we've got to do as coaches is try and blend that together to get the best version out of these new performing athletes, and then hopefully a better performance at the end of the day.
I love that journal thing you mentioned there. When did you kind of come up with that idea? And have you noticed, I know not everyone does it, but since the players maybe over a long-term period have done it, have you noticed a difference maybe in their approach to their performance and their week?
Oh, totally. We actually put a lot of time in it over COVID during that lockdown period a year and a half ago now. And we came out of COVID, we had a little working group. What would our journal look like? What do you blokes want in your journal? And so we had the player input with that. At the time, we got a performance skills coach come in, a guy by the name of Jack Burke. So that sort of became his area to educate the players on how to best manage themselves during the course of the week. It could be on, a simple thing, how to do journaling. Could be on how to be reflective. It could be on visualization. It could be on relaxation. It could be skills under pressure. All of that sort of stuff. So all of that mind stuff, which we could call him the mind coach if we like, but it's a performance skills we call it. So Jack's come on board with that, and the uptake has been slow, but it's been gradual. And what I'm seeing now is that because what used to happen, Orla, was, and I think this happens in most sports, the player rocks up to training and the coach says, here's what we're doing today. And the player goes, yeah, righto. And off they go and do it. Now, they'll get some learning out of that. But wouldn't it be brilliant if the player rocks up the trains and in his own mind he says, well, today there's 3 things I need to work on. In attack, I've got to work on my foot speed into contact. In defence, I've got to work on my body in front and finish in the tackle. And generally, I just want to work on continuous movement and staying in motion. So it doesn't matter what the coach throws at me. They're the 3 things that I'm going to zone in on today. And that could be very different for all, for the 43 players that we've got.
Yeah.
So regardless of what we throw at them, the players have got things that they're already zoned in on what they need to pick up.
Yeah.
So you've now got a player coming in with a genuine focus as to what he wants to work on. You've got the coach who's put a lot of preparation, the coaching staff put a lot of preparation and time into what this session looks like. And now we combine the 2. And we've got a really purposeful training session now, as opposed to coach turning up going, here's the session. The bloke goes, yep, sweet. I know I've got to do some attack defence. He doesn't know. He's not zoning on anything. And then when he goes to review the session, at the end of the session, if you're not planned going into it, when you go to review that session, and we provide video or vision of all of our sessions.
Okay.
I'd say 60-70% of the players go and watch it. There's still a portion that don't go and watch it.
Yeah.
But now if you've gone in saying, well, my key things are footwork, body in front, staying in motion, when I'm reviewing that session, that's all I'm looking for. I'm just looking for those things. The coach will come back. If there's anything else, the coach might come back and support me with that, or let me know either what I did really well or what I didn't do really well. But I've now got something really tangible that I can manage, or I can reflect upon and say, did I do that? Yeah. So, it sounds really simple, and it is really simple, but it takes a long, long time to get players and even coaches into that mindset that would be in my mind, that'd be a really purposeful, powerful session if we could do that.
Yeah, what I love there is just what you're saying. And I had a question down, how much responsibilities do you give your players? You seem to give them a lot. And what I love about it, it's all self-driven. And as you said, like someday you might not even have to show up to training because the players are just going to drive everything.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, if heaven forbid something happened to us where we couldn't turn up to training, I would suggest that our training sessions would still be pretty successful. They'd still flow, and there'd be an element of players just taking over. And we actually give some of the sessions just to the players.
Okay.
We have line-out sessions. We say, boys, that's on you. We give them due warning, so we might tell them the night before, tomorrow you've got a 30-minute session. You go and take that. You tell us what you want to get through. We don't do it for attack defence. We do with our clarity stuff. With the clarity stuff, players just want to take that. I used to be the only other job I've had, I was an outward bound instructor. So I won't bore you with the details of that, but pretty much you're taking people on a journey, on an 8-day to 26-day journey, where it's a group of people who've never met before, but you want to get them from point A to point B where you're camping out in the bush, you're bushwalking, you're rafting, you're mountain climbing, you're abseiling, doing that sort of stuff. So the first 3, I always said the first third of however long that journey was, the first third of that was mostly me as the instructor, right? So that's me giving you guys, or giving the group, the background on what they need to do to survive out in the bush, but also to navigate properly, do all of that. Yeah. So I'm purely instructing. So that's me instructing. The middle third of that journey that we were on, I'll call it mentoring. You guys can take some leadership. I'll guide you. You can ask some questions and we'll play off each other. We'll feed off each other. And the last third of that is it's over to them. Now I'm there to support. So I'd call that pure coaching, really. I'm not going to give you the answer. I'll ask you key questions. So when you say, we're going the right way, friend, I'll say, are we on a ridgeline? And you'll say yes or no. If we're not on a ridgeline, where's the nearest ridgeline? Because staying on the ridgeline is the right way to do it. I'm not going to tell you whether going the right way or not. If we get lost, well, I'll get lost with you, but I know I can get ourselves out of that. And it's very similar to coaching. Yeah. It's actually very similar to parenting. It's the exact same. So a lot of instruction early on. Middle bit there, we're going to work together on this. Last bit, this is you. Yeah. You're there to catch them if they fall. But by the time they get to the end of the journey, i.e. the game day on Saturday, if they win, they've got this feeling that was me, or that was us. We don't need you blokes. And you go, brilliant, that's great. Yeah. Right? Rather than, we need the coach. If the coach isn't here, we're going to lose. And when they win, for example, the coach goes, that was me. Yeah. And you go, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. It shouldn't be about you. You had your time in the sun. That was years ago. This is about now the players and how well they did. So, that that stuck with me out of Outward Bound, and it's a way. I'm not going to say we do that every week, but that's definitely the trend that we try and work with, where we give responsibility. By the end of the week, the players are the ones that are leading.
I love that. A question in from a previous coaching podcast guest, Paul Kelleher. He's the Irish under-18 men's basketball coach. He wanted to know, how do you manage deep squads? Like you mentioned, there are 43 players. I know Paul did have a selection of 12 players going abroad. How do you connect with those 43 players? Because that's quite a large number.
It is a large number. And it's tricky. It's not easy because how do I connect with them? I give everybody the same amount of time. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether you player 1 to player 43. You're in our squad. I'm going to give you time, and I do care about you, and I'm going to zone in on you and try and work to learn as much as I can about you and what makes you tick and what your key aspirations are and your desires are and targets are. So that doesn't change whether you're player 1 or player 43 or staff member, head of operations to kit man. They're all, we're all part of this. So everyone gets, in my mind, I attempt to. Do I do it? You'd have to ask the players, but I attempt to share my time amongst everybody there. Mm-hmm. The tricky bit with managing them is the players anyway, 1 to 43, they want to play footy. And unfortunately, because of COVID, and where we currently sit, we haven't had a lot of rugby for them. So you've got these blokes who are really good at this sport, but they've had a limited opportunity. We've got a couple of fellas who haven't played for 8 months. It doesn't mean they're not good footballers. It just means at the minute we're just not. We feel like we've got players who are playing better ahead of them. So how do they then improve themselves? And what's the key messaging when they come in? Because as humans, what we tend to do is we're not selected, and the first thing that goes through your mind is coach doesn't rate me. And it's like, no. Well, sometimes we might not, and if we don't, we'll tell you. We will be that blunt and say, no, your performance at the moment is not good enough, and we're not selecting you because of that. But there's other players there who are training out of their skin. Like, we got a couple of fellas, best I've ever seen them train. They're hitting PBs and gyms. They're training the house down on the footy field. They never stop trying. They're doing their key extras. They're doing all their work-ons, and they're zoned in on everything. They're doing their journal. And they're knocking on the door going, what are you thinking, friend? I said, well, you tell me. What do you think I'm thinking? Do I think you're training well? Well, I'd hope you. Yeah, I think you're training brilliantly, mate. When can I get my chance? When do you reckon you get your chance? Probably when a player ahead of me gets injured or has a really bad game. Exactly. I actually love what you're doing. I think you've been brilliant. But at the moment, we've got a bloke sitting ahead of you who he's doing really well too, but he's only doing well because you're keeping the pressure on him. So keep the pressure on and be ready, because your chance will come, something will happen. And when you get that chance, be ready for that. Yeah. And make it that we get into the next selection meeting and we go, we can't not pick him now. He's been brilliant. And actually we've got a player who's just gone through that. It's Niall Murray. Niall Murray was not even in our 23. And then a couple of games went by, there was an injury. He got snuck into our 23, and then there was another injury and he snuck into the starting team. And he has been absolutely outstanding the last 2 games against Munster and then against Ulster, our last performance. And he is now the first lock on the team sheet.
I love that.
Yeah, and you just go, well, we can't not have you. But, 5 weeks before, he wasn't in the 23, but he stayed doing what he stayed focused on his key role. He kept working hard. He didn't drop his bottom lip. He just said, no, my time will come. And it came, and then he performed and he delivered. You other blokes got to try and get him out now.
Yeah, that's the thing. You mentioned their injury. How do you manage, I guess, the players, and what's your relationship like with the medical and strength and conditioning staff? Because I guess, particularly with a sport like rugby, it's a very important relationship to maintain throughout the season.
Well, I think every relationship within the team is important. So, again, similar as I said there before, my time, I try and spend it equally amongst everybody. So, as I said, I've got a great relationship with our kit man. He's actually the heartbeat of our team.
Brilliant.
Our medical staff, there's a brilliant relationship there, where we're constantly in contact and working with them. We've got Barry O'Brien, who runs he's the head of rehab. So there's a great relationship there. I reckon the injury stuff's hard, and I reckon one of the things that we've added this year, which has added real value, our skills and backs attack coach Mossy Lawler, is spending time. He came into the program new this year, and one of his observations, having been an academy coach, was I just reckon, he'd been watching, because he'd been in the academy program, he'd been watching the way we managed the squad the previous 3 years. And his feedback was, I just don't think you spend enough time with the injured players, which is really good feedback.
Okay.
So how do we fix that? He said, well, I'm going to do skills with them every other day. Sweet. So he's now doing that. Our injured players love it. They love the fact that there's a coach now giving them attention. One of the things we were doing, we had this thing called a Brekkie Club, because I'm aware that if you've got injured players, you can lose connection with them because they're not involved in all your key sessions. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, front end of the week, our heads are on the review of the previous game, the preview of the next opposition coming up. So what we used to do was on a Friday, when really for a coach, it's your down day. It's a day before a game. It's, in my mind, it's our down day.
Okay.
So now I can start to spend time somewhere else. So in my first year here and up until COVID, we were coming in at 7 o'clock on the Friday morning, training with our injured players, and then going for brekkie with them. And we go down, we call it Brekkie Club, and we go down to the Huntsman just near us, and we there might be a table of 14 of us. Unfortunately, sometimes we have a lot of injuries. Might be a table of 14 of us, and we're sitting there just having brekkie and just having a chin wag and just catching up. Doesn't have to be about footy. Just how you going? How's your girlfriend? What happened last weekend? And social life and whatever it is, just catching up. And at the end of the year, when we sought feedback from the players, one of the things they loved was the fact that we had this Brekkie Club where, they understood as an injured player, there's going to be a period of isolation for them, but they were still very much a part of our thinking. COVID then put a bit of a stop to that. We've done a couple of those this year, but I think the key thing we've added to it this year is Mossy coming in and doing those skills with the players, and they absolutely love it. People just want attention. People just want to continue to try and get better. And I don't think it's never a nasty thing if we're not thinking of them. It's just, it's a time thing and it's a management thing. But you do yourself huge favours as a coach to make sure you're investing time into your injured players, because they're still an integral part of your squad.
Absolutely. I'm only back from a major injury myself, so I understand from a player's perspective. But as you said, the coach there, like, you've so much time doing so many things. Sometimes it is hard. I'm interested in the feedback you mentioned there at the end of the year. What sort of questions are you asking players, and what areas are you looking for feedback in?
Yeah. Well, we at the end of every year, we do a review. We do a review of all the areas within the program, and we do seek players' feedback on that too. Our exiting players, we actually zone more in on those guys, to be honest with you, for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're exiting, and more times than not, it's not their call to be exiting. It's normally the club's call. It may have been injury, may have been lack of form, or getting to an age. Every now and then, though, you've got a player who's moving on to something better. So, but regardless of why they're exiting, however long they've been within the program, it's been a major part of their life. So I think it's really important that you give them the opportunity to have a final say and to share their thoughts. So that always happens one-on-one with me. Due to COVID, it happens over Zoom, but prior to that, it was face-to-face. And I'd always share with them 6 or 7 questions. Questions like, what's the proudest thing that you've done during your time here at Connacht? What would you say to somebody coming into Connacht Rugby? What would be a key thing both on and off the football field that you think we should keep doing? What would be a key thing both on and off the football field that you think we need to change? What would be one key bit of critical feedback that you'd provide me as a coach? How could have I been better for you? And so on and so forth. So it's always about a half hour to 45-minute conversation. I get so much out of that because, again, part of one of the things that players are exiting so they can feel they can be really honest. Actually, one of the other great questions is, what staff member has been the biggest support for you during your time at Connacht Rugby? And that response is brilliant, because they'll call out staff members that I may not have been aware of that relationship. It could have been a physio because they've been injured a lot. So then I can pick up the phone to that physio and say, just an FYI, just got off the phone I did my exit meeting with blah, blah. you were so powerful for them. So well done. Like, you actually changed that person's time here. And that's, so then the staff member gets that and goes, "You beauty, I must be on the right track."
Yeah.
So, things like that are really, really, to me, they're really powerful. For the rest of the group, we use the simple stop, start, keep. So what do we need to stop doing, start doing, keep doing? A pretty simple one. But I've used that for the last, or probably for the last decade, and you always pick up some really good traits coming out of that.
Okay, interesting. I have a question here from my uncle. Quick shout out to my uncle Cormac. He sees Connacht like Leicester in soccer. You work hard and have a great fan base, but how do you motivate the team to compete with the Liverpool and Man City of the world?
They're actually the easy ones to compete against, because you're up against the big ones, and I seriously don't feel like we have an inferiority complex. I tell you what's been tricky, and I think there is an element where we're changing that at the moment. Do we have genuine belief? I think we go into every game with genuine belief that we can compete. But when the going gets tough, and let's say we're up against a Leinster, and they go and throw 2 tries on us, I reckon the hardest mindset to change is not every player, but there'll be a percentage of players to go, "I knew that was going to happen." Well, no, you didn't. No, you didn't know that was going to happen. That's happened, but now let's not live in the past. Now we've got to. That's why we go back to performance skills coach. How can I disregard everything that's just happened there and still stay zoned in to say, well, the next however many minutes is left, or the next 5 minutes, with all the training that I've done, I can actually be the best player on the football field. Mm-hmm. So how do I do that? And it starts at an individual level, and then we build that into the team confidence. So as you'd probably be aware, we haven't been the most consistent team, and most of our lack of consistency comes against teams where, you read the team sheet, and with all respect to some team, you read it and you go, well, we should be beating them. But then, so we drop off our preparation and our mental application to the team, and we fall against the team that it's going to be a tight battle, but we should be the better team. We tend to go okay against the bigger teams unless they get quick fire scores on us, 2 or 3 in the first 15, 20 minutes. And then that bias comes in, the confirmation bias comes in to say, I knew that was going to happen. No, you didn't. Otherwise, you'd be making $1 million being a fortune tellers. You didn't know that was going to happen, but it's happened. But we can still change that. So, it's a tricky one. But again, I think it starts at the individual level. If every player knows that their preparation, it comes down to journaling, their preparation's been the best that they could have put in there, we won't win every game. But if you can walk off that footy field and say, I couldn't have done any more. I couldn't have done any more in my prep. I thought the way I prepared myself, the way I delivered, yes, I got a couple of things wrong, as we all do in the game of footy, or in life. But so those things happen. But otherwise, I'm really proud of the performance. Righto, we were just beaten by a better football team. That's okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had a question in from Michael on Twitter. I see that Connacht are trying to move the ball at every opportunity, no matter where on the pitch. Is this an Australian flair you're trying to introduce?
Oh no, I'm not going to take credit for that. We've got to listen. As an Aussie, I was brought up playing on dry fields, on hard surfaces, and the view was to move the football. So that is my philosophy on the game. And I'm also a really strong believer, as I say to people, why did William Webb Ellis pick up the soccer ball and run with it? He picked it up because he was so bored of this bloody kick, and he hated the game of soccer. So he said, bugger it, I'm going to run. And so that's what he did. So to me, the game was born out of somebody that said, just run with a ball. That's what we're meant to do. Yeah. So I have a love affair for that, because I think that's the fundamentals of the game. That's why it first started. But why I'm not going to take credit for it, if you'd ask me, yes, that's the way I want the game played. But we've got a brilliant coaching group that's led by Pete Wilkins, who's our senior coach, and he's based his coaching philosophy and model on a very similar view, where it's all about, he uses the term water. We want to be like water, and water will always find a gap. So if you give us space, water will move through it. So if you just think about, water moving down a river, and there could be big rocks in front of it, trees falls in front of it, doesn't matter, just change direction and go another way. That's the way we like to play the game with Connacht. That's been part of Connacht's DNA, but what's important now is we've got a coaching group myself included, where that's the way we see the game that needs to be played. So, and we have a playing group that's what we're good at. That's what we recruit on. We recruit on players that have speed, are brave, have the capacity to be relentless, which is one of our key game styles. So we try and recruit that, and that's what we deliver on a footy field. And it's good fun to watch. It's good fun to play. It's good fun to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I listened to an interview you did recently, and you were talking about identity and style of the team. I'm pretty sure I have this right, but you mentioned 3 words: fast, relentless, and adaptable. Can you explain those 3 words and how you actually came up with those 3?
Well, again, it wasn't me solely that came up with it. Pete Wilkins and I and others had input into that over the course of the last pre-season. And Connacht's always had a style, I think, but could you pinpoint what it was? I think if you go back and have a look at their 2015-16 season when they won, they were definitely fast. Like, they moved the ball around a lot, and they had this tempo in the game. They were dogged, right? So they didn't stop giving up, and they were probably considered the underdog, but they just kept coming at you. And I think living in the west of Ireland, you have to be adaptable because things change all the time. So when we sat back and looked at it more holistically as to, when has Connacht been at its best? What do we think represents our squad best? What can our players do, and what can we deliver as coaches? They were the 3 words we came up with. We think fast because we're never going to be the biggest group, but we'll run you off your feet, and we want to play at a tempo that will eventually tire you out. Relentless, that's just, that's that Connacht spirit, where you just don't give up. And adaptable, we need to be able to change. We need to be able to change our game style depending upon the weather, depending upon the opposition, the referee, home and away, all the rest of all those other things. So we don't want to be stuck in this one system where you've only got plan A. We've got plan A, B, C, D, E, F if we choose to. So we're quite happy to say, well, that's not working, move to this next thing. But again, that's a mindset. You've got to be able to train that. Otherwise, people get stuck in this one frame. Well, that's not working. No, it's not going to work because opposition worked it out. So we came up with it, and say it was Pete and I and others came up with that. I think it's been really powerful for our group because everything we do now, whether it's in the gym, whether it's on the training field, whether it's the way we talk, everything is around that. We'll zone in on, we were brilliantly fast at that. Look at that. That's fast. Yeah. Look at that. That's relentless. Look how we changed there. That's adaptable. Similarly, if we haven't done that well, for example, in our last game against Ulster, we didn't adapt to the referee. We gave away 17 penalties, 11 in the first half. We didn't adapt. And the message at halftime was, fellas, we talk about being adaptable. We've come in 17-6 up. So it's not a bad half of footy. But the message was, what are we doing? We're not adapting here. Referees nailed us 11 times. We've got to take another half a step back from the defensive line. We're getting nailed there all the time. We went into the second half, and 22 minutes in, we gave away our first penalty. But by that stage, we've won the game because our relentless pressure, without relieving the pressure because of penalties, allowed us to get the line breaks and to score the tries. That's where we won the game. We won the game by eventually adapting to what Andy Brace, the referee, the way he was adjudicating us. And we weren't smart. We weren't smart enough nor adaptable enough in the first half to realise that. So that worked for us there.
James sent in a great question. I think it's very applicable for any coaches listening that aren't, let's say, from a rugby background. Respect and discipline in rugby is very big, especially towards officials. And from my background, that isn't always the case. How can other sports and coaches in particular replicate this discipline with their team?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's monkey see, monkey do. So if you're the coach, you have to be respectful, right? So you can't be saying to your players, I need you to respect, and as soon as the referee plays a bad call, you go give him a bollock, you start yelling at him, telling him he's blind and needs a seeing eye dog or whatever it is. But so you need to understand that as the coach, you set the tone for that. Our sport is very, very big on it. So referee is still called sir. Most players, excuse me, sir. And you just call him sir because that's what we were brought up with. That becomes the habit of rugby. I actually feel like the game, and we should never, ever lose that, because to me, that's one of the beauties of our game that sets it apart. At the end of the day in life, we have people that try and keep the discipline, i.e. the police force and the law. And they don't always get it right, but more times than not, they're there to support and to make sure that we live in a safe environment. And it's the exact same on a rugby field. Our policeman on the rugby field is the referee and his 2 assistants or his 2 deputies, and they're there to try and create an environment for us to exist in that's safe and that's even for everybody. They don't always get the things right, nor do we as coaches get every decision right on the game, but nor do the players. So don't hound him for the errors that they're making there on a continual basis. At the end of it, there's a review process. By all means, go through that. But I reckon, as soon as someone shows disrespect to a referee, you march them. If they do it again, you send them off, and that stops it pretty damn quickly. And I'm actually a sports lover. I watch all sports, but that's one of the things that irked me about the game of soccer for so long. How the hell can a referee or an umpire, I think they call them there, a referee, how can they make a decision and have 5 blokes running up at it and tell them what they're doing wrong and be like, back away, mate. And in fact, if you don't back away, you're off the footy field and your mate's off the footy field. And if you had a referee or an umpire strong enough to do that, you wouldn't have it happen, would you?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have it happen.
Yeah, you're right. I've asked a number of guests this question. It's probably nearly my mission to get the answer, but without naming names, what separates the great players and the elite level players from the rest of the pack?
I think there's a couple of things. I think their preparation is one. So to me, I have a little saying I use with the players: the board man gets paid. The BORED, the board man gets paid. So someone who, because doing your stretching, sleeping right, eating right, doing your pre-game preparation, your mental preparation, your opposition preview, your reflective reviews, and so on. So it can be boring. It can be tedious.
Yeah.
But if you continuously do that, that becomes your habit. Guess what? You're going to have, and you're any good at sport, you're going to have a pretty good career. So the board man gets paid. I reckon, don't get bored of doing the simple things well. Most of us want to be flash, right? But the flash stuff comes when you become really, really good at something. Then the flash stuff starts to happen. You get into this flow and it just happens for you. So that'd be the first, the person that's prepared. And then the other person who's got, that I think is successful, is those that live in the present moment. So we all make errors. And I always say good players make errors, great players make errors and drop it straight away, get on to the next thing. But how many players do you see make the error and 5 minutes later still thinking, knock the ball on? Well, you can't change that. That's happened, so let it go. So the capacity to be able to stay present in the moment and forget about what's just happened, own it, take yourself out of that moment now and say, I'll be better next time, then get into the new moment and then stay in that moment. Don't reflect upon that.
Yeah.
That'll turn you into a great player. So those 2 simple things, to me, through my experience, the great players are the ones that can do that. They don't get bored of doing the simple stuff and they stay present in the moment.
Brilliant. What's been the biggest lesson you've learned from coaching or sport so far?
That it's all about relationships.
Okay.
So, it's not, there's an element of X's and O's and tactical, technical. But to me, the longer I'm in the game, this is a game around relationships and about connection and about man management. Which I think is what life's about. At the end of the day, life's about that. Life's about connecting with as many people as you can, listening to many different views and thoughts and opinions on different things, having your own views and being strong with those, but being able to change. So sports taught me that. Sports taught me that you've got to be strong in what you think too, but you don't have to be rigid in that. You can always learn, and tomorrow's another learning day, or today's another learning day. So never ever stop learning. So, there's probably so many. It's a great question, but there'd be so many little, gifts and treats that being in this occupation has given me over time. Mm-hmm. But they're the first 2 that come to mind.
If there's any coaches listening that do struggle with building that relationship, because I guess maybe from GEA that wasn't always the case. It's probably the modern approach, as some people call it. What advice would you give to coaches to help them develop better relationships with their players?
Spend time, ask questions. And I reckon the great, it's a Stephen Covey, one of his 7 habits of highly effective people. Habit number 5, seek to understand before being understood, right? So everybody has a different view because everyone comes from a different walk of life. So when someone does something either really, really good or something that really irks you, there'll be a reason they've done that. So I reckon the key thing for you as a coach is not to judge that, but to spend time asking the question, why did that just happen? What's going on here? Why would you do that? Or, it could be something really positive. That was brilliant. How did you get to that? What did you do to get that? So understand where they're coming from. It tends to happen more when there's been an error or there's been someone's continuously late to training or doesn't do what you ask them to do. Spend time trying to find out, because there'll be a reason for it. Doesn't mean the player doesn't like you, doesn't mean the player disrespects you, doesn't mean the player doesn't care. There'll be a reason for that. And if you can spend the time trying to find out why that event is happening, and now you can build a bridge to fix that. And you can build a bridge to say, right, I'm with you on that. Now, can I help you with that? At the end of the day, it's up to the player. Sometimes you can do all the seeking you want, but the player just doesn't want to change. That's fine. But at least you spent the time to find out what the reason was, and you threw out the olive branch. Whether they choose to take it or not, it's up to them. But for me, that ability to ask questions, to seek to understand a person before you make judgment or without making judgment, I reckon that's key. But you have to give it time, and everyone's different, right? So, as I said, I try and spend equal amount of time with all players. Some players, it's on a Sunday post the game, we might have a half-hour chat. There's probably 3 or 4 players that's where I spend my time with them. Other players, it's during the course of the week, whether it's just a sit down next to them in the change room, whether it's a make a coffee with them, whether it's a go for a meal with them, or maybe it's just a few text messages. Some players just respond better over text. There's a myriad of different ways you can do that, but try and find out the best form of connection and how you can have a relationship with people, and spend time trying to work that out for each individual.
Brilliant. I'm going to end the episode with the Sideline 7. It's the same 7 questions at the end of every episode. It's kind of a thought-provoking round, but you can take it whatever way you want. Question 1, what is your favourite quote? You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Brilliant. And do you use quotes much with the team at all?
I used to. And that one springs to mind because I've used that. And probably, sorry, I've got another one for you.
Go for it, yeah.
If you believe you can or believe you can't, you're probably right.
Love it. Question 2, best sporting event you've been to?
Oh, I'd have to say it was a Bledisloe Cup match. I'll say I'll say the World Cup final 2003 in Sydney. I was actually working for the Wallabies at the time. Now we lost, but it was just a brilliant event to be at. I was lucky enough to be at the Rio Olympics too. That was pretty special. But the 2003 World Cup final would have to be it.
Is there any particular sporting event on your bucket list?
Tour de France, 100%.
Okay.
And I'll get there.
You will. Question 3, biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, and how did you react to it?
Would have to be getting sacked. I've been sacked twice. And the first time was by far the hardest because I never envisaged that I was going to get sacked, and I didn't see it coming. But it happens. And if you're a coach, it will happen to you. If you stay in the game long enough, you will get sacked. The thing that surprised me the most was probably how invisible you became within a number of like 24 hours, pretty much. So again, because I was a young coach back then, it was 2004, and I'm thinking, I've been sacked. I didn't see that coming. Don't know what the next job is. Got a young family, got the mortgage to pay. But more than anything, like, players are going to be really pissed off with this. And you get a few text messages that night. Sorry to see that, friendy. No worries, mate. And then silence. Your phone just stops. And then you realise that players have moved on to the next bloke who's come in, and you just become irrelevant. Yeah. And it gave me real perspective on at the end of the day, you're there for your time, and when your time's up, you're out. Get it, move on. So it was a really good lesson to learn. I was sacked a second time, 2009, 2011, I think it was. But at that time, similar, I didn't see that coming. But we had another personal event had happened in our lives. My wife had suffered a really bad injury. So at the time, I didn't care. I actually did not care. And in fact, I'll never forget the phone call to the CEO the night before saying, listen, we'd like you to resign or you're going to get sacked. I said, I'm not resigning, mate. I've done nothing wrong. In my mind, I've done nothing wrong. So if you want to sack me, you can sack me. Won't look good on your resume for anyone. So I couldn't give two hoots. Like, I'm not stepping down from anything. But if you want to sack me, have some balls and do it. So he did the next day. He sacked me. And it was honestly fine. I was like, sweet, move on to the next thing, which was focused on my wife. So I had a year off coaching and we just focused on her and getting her right. And in the end, I was really thankful that actually happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Kind of on the flip side then, your biggest achievement so far in your career?
I'm going to say connections, and it's going to sound really weird, but yeah, I've won things, but it's not about the winning. Like I'll share this. I got a random text 2 weeks ago. Woke up because Australia's on a different timeline as a text, and it's from an ex-player, and it was just lengthy text, just saying, thinking of you the other day, friend. He started this business. Just wanted to thank you for all the learnings you gave us and all the things. I can now see why you're doing this. I can see why you're doing that, and so on and so forth. And they're the touching moment. They're, to me, they're the big successes, right? Where you've had an impact in a positive way on someone's life. Now, you often don't hear about those, but every now and then you'll get a random text like that, or you'll be walking down the street and someone will stop you and go, mate, I just want to say thanks. You coached my son, or you coached my nephew, or my grandkid, or whatever it was. And from that, he's learned this, and this. And you go, oh, wow, that's really positive. So that would be my biggest achievement is having a positive influence and impact on young people's lives that has a lasting effect.
Brilliant. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Slow down. Okay. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. And that's exactly what it would be. I think I was in a rush. I think like most ambitious, competitive people are. I was in a rush for things to happen, but as said, as life goes on, and you certain things happen to you in life. The injury to my wife was by far the biggest life-changing moment for us. Mm-hmm. But that puts everything in perspective. That all of a sudden, life can just change like that. So, we work on the saying. You probably heard it, but yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery. Just stop and live in today, and there couldn't be a truer word spoken, actually.
Brilliant. Who would be your dream dinner guest and why?
Nelson Mandela.
Okay.
And why I've just had a fascination with that man for a long time. I just admired everything he stood for and his capacity to get through hardship. He's 27 years in prison and still come out with a smile on his face, and and still have the views that he had. I just thought he was a really special human being. So he would be one. I've just started reading the Billy Connolly book. He'd be fascinating to sit down with. Listen, there'd be a million of them, but Nelson Mandela is the first bloke that springs to my mind.
Brilliant. Last question before I let you go. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
Oh, how long's the book? I don't know. I'll call it chapter 52 because I'm 52 years of age. How about that? And hopefully the book goes for 80 chapters. That'd be lovely.
Brilliant. Look, Andy, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed that. I actually got a lot from it as well. I've loads of notes here. I just want to wish you the very best of luck moving forward, and I'm really looking forward to keeping in touch and keeping up with the season.
Good on you all. I appreciate the time. Thank you. Good question.
A massive thank you to Andy for joining me today. I thoroughly enjoyed our chat and I personally took a lot of notes and different lessons away from the conversation. If you did enjoy the episode, I really appreciate you could leave a rating and a review, as it does help the show grow. Check out the website thesidelinelive.com for more and subscribe to our newsletter using the link in the description box below. Thanks as always for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.